Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few months ago, we marked the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We must not take for granted that this critical document, recognizing the fundamental rights and equal value of every person, will necessarily last another 75 years. It must be actively protected and supported by all of us. New Zealand has a strong and enduring commitment to human rights and the international human rights system. The promotion of universal and indivisible human rights is fundamental to the world we live in today and to a collective vision of our future. Today we see a number of pressing crises around the globe that we must address and that are of great concern to New Zealand. In Gaza, the impact of the conflict on the human rights of everyone affected has been horrendous. We are gravely concerned by indications that Israel is planning a ground offensive into Rafah, which would have catastrophic humanitarian consequences. New Zealand has supported the General Assembly's calls for urgent humanitarian ceasefires to enable safe, unimpeded and sustained humanitarian access. The human rights of all Palestinians and all Israelis must be upheld. In Ukraine, New Zealand remains deeply concerned by the continued reports of human rights violations, which are the direct result of Russia's unprovoked and illegal invasion and ongoing war of aggression. In Iran, the breadth of human rights violations is alarming, including restrictions on the rights of freedom of opinion and expression, persecution of women and religious and ethnic minorities, and the use of the death penalty. In Afghanistan, we are deeply dismayed by the significant limitations on women and girls' participation as full and equal members of society. New Zealand continues to condemn in the strongest possible terms the military coup in Myanmar and the regime's ongoing atrocities and human rights violations, and calls for an immediate end to the violence and a return to civilian rule. New Zealand has been consistent in raising our concerns regarding the treatment of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang. We once again call on China to implement all recommendations made by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We also express our concern over the erosion of rights and freedoms in Hong Kong. New Zealand continues to prioritise important thematic human rights issues. We are pleased to co-lead with Mexico this session a resolution on the rights of persons with disabilities. We will also continue to prioritise engagement on rights that are consistent with our national values and character. These include democratic rights, the rights of Indigenous peoples, women's rights, and the abolition of the death penalty. We have also seen new threats to human rights emerge, such as the climate crisis, which threatens to widen existing inequalities, heighten the risk of conflict, and in some cases poses an existential threat to communities, including in our own Pacific region. This Council is a forum for all states to engage openly on human rights and to hold each other to account when we fall short of our obligations. Its agenda has expanded in recent years in response to a deteriorating global human rights situation and proactive efforts to address the human rights impacts of new issues such as artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. We are seriously concerned by any efforts to wind back the rights of individuals who are members of groups in vulnerable situations or to shut out the voices of civil society. New Zealand is just weeks away from our 4th Universal Periodic Review. This is an important part of the UN human rights system, and we look forward to engaging with you all as part of this process. We will remain steadfast in our commitment to support the international human rights system and to uphold, promote and protect human rights at home and around the world. Thank you, Mr. President.